You hear the screeching of an owl, you hear the wind begin to howl. You know there's zombies on the prowl. And it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. It's terror time again. And you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time.
Hello everyone, 'tis that time again. It's time for a brand new patch. Today we're covering build 41.72 and breaking down everything new, updated, and balanced in one easy place. But before we begin, I'd like to thank HaloOwl for his fantastic artwork. I'd like to ask y'all to support the video. Now let's dive into the patch with what's new, shall we? Introduced into today's updates, a fair amount of new content and reworked areas or expansions upon content that's been added in the last few updates. So let's start with a new server option. Now the option Map Remote Player Visibility is added and has 3 parameters. 1 means remote players aren't visible in the in-game map. 2 means remote players in the same faction or sharing a safe house are visible. And 3 means remote players are always visible. This option also shows in the server settings editor as well as the admin panel. Another map related change is the fact that the option button, which used to only show for debug mode, now shows for everyone, just with less options. Your choices are to show players, remote players only, which is client only, player names, which is also client only, and for displaying symbols. Now the game will give a higher priority for pathfinding to zombies that are actively targeting the player than the other zombies. A panel has also been added to the attachment editor using Shift F7 that is displayed when a world attachment is selected, which displays the selected model as it would appear on the ground. Now a nice change is 9 new maps have been added to the in-game loot pool that together cover the entirety of Louisville. The downside is they're all just called Louisville map. To fix this, I'd recommend use the Has Been Read mod, which will let you know if you found that specific map or not. Now the game will highlight changes to the zombie lore on the sandbox mode select. These highlights are in reference to if it differs from the Apocalypse difficulty settings. A new attached to glass tile property has been added to make signs that are stuck to windows to fall off when the window is destroyed. Now the loot window is prevented from popping open when clicking on objects while using the furniture manipulation tools. Default indicators have been added to the sandbox option tooltips, and now certain empty bottles can be used to store gasoline, and water capacity has been added to the context tooltip for when you're filling up a water container, if there's only one item type. Community translations have once again been updated for some of the newer content, as well as credits to some of the community-made content. Now the icon draw has been improved for context menus. And now you can also rename save files using the Load Game More panel. There is now various picture frames, but they don't spawn in yet. They have no inventory icon and use an empty frame icon for now. Now double doors can be built inside of buildings, which also fixes a bug where they couldn't be built on some outer walls of buildings. There's also a check for wall-like obstacles that should prevent a door from opening or closing. Now it won't allow you to build stairs in places that have walls or obstacles at the top, as the player would often pass through them when going up the stairs, which caused a hilarious bug where you get stuck up top. There's been a large amount of additions and changes to the loot, vehicle, and zombie outfit distributions, as well as lots of new items. Evolved recipes can now show longer names, listing up to 3 of the included ingredients, and translation support has been added for the new recipe naming system. There's also been a variety of sound and music changes as well. The sound banks have been updated with the latest versions. A new action music track has been added. Now one of the male zombie voices shouldn't loop the getting hit sound effect forever. Now when you get water from a dispenser, it plays the noise. There has been a variety of ambient sounds added, such as the gas-to-go pumps, as well as the arcade machines, which threw me off the first time. Now items play a sound when they're powered by a generator. There is now lunging, swing, and hit sound effects for when a crawling zombie attacks a window or a fence, and now they play their attack and getting up sounds during fence and window crawling attacks. The map has also had a good large addition to it. This is the last addition to the map until the later builds, so build 42 and so on, but it includes a large amount of updates for the farms and farmsteads. I was surprised when I saw a mannequin being used as a scarecrow on a farm, and I went to the farmhouse with the well to the west of Muldraw. The chicken coop has been replaced with a different chicken coop that threw me off on stream, and it's in a different location. There's also been a variety of tiles added, and the upper class, more bougie areas in Louisville have been updated to be even better. A variety of map bugs and issues have also been fixed, but now let's move on to one of today's biggest sets of changes. That's right, there is a huge amount of food and recipe changes, so get ready to eat your heart out. First up, ice cream cones now melt and produce a melted ice cream cone. There's now gravy boats, bologna and salami can be cut into slices, and snack cakes now have in-game models. One really big addition is condensed canned milk. This is really big for when you want to do late game cooking, but all the milk in game is spoiled and cows haven't been added yet to milk them. There's also been various balancing changes for a variety of foods. Now many foods can be used in evolved recipes. There's also new recipes for onigiri, baguette dough, biscuit dough. Finally, we can make our own meat patties so we can make our own burgers late game. You can scoop ice cream and now make trays of cookie dough for fresh cookies. Toast has also been made by cooking bread slices, and if you cook a cheese sandwich, it becomes a grilled cheese. There's also a large amount of evolved recipes added for things such as ice cream cones, pies, bread, toast, etc, etc. An evolved recipe is a recipe that usually uses another item that's needed from a recipe. So for example, you have to make an ice cream cone before you can make an ice cream cone with toppings. We'll say you have to cook bread into toast before you can add toppings like avocados or beans. And now whole pizzas are in the game, and glasses and cups can now be filled with water. The wild garlic item has been replaced with wild garlic 2, which allows it to be edible as well as fulfilling its medical roles. Maggots also spawn on zombie corpses, but these are mildly poisonous, so it's probably best to not eat the bugs that are eating rotten infected human flesh. Pizzas has an evolved recipe for toppings now, and if you make a hot beverage with black sage, common mallow, or lemongrass, this herbal tea will keep the medicinal properties of the original items while gaining the benefits of being a hot drink. This also means you can make more hot beverages. You can also use coffee and espresso machines with mugs and other correct items. So no, don't try filling up a gas can with hot coffee. Tomato paste is now an item for pizza crafting, but it can also be added as a spice in other things like salads. That also means there's a prepared pizza recipe. With this complete, we can now move on to the balance changes made to the game. So far, these changes are pretty sliced. They're cut above the rest, and Indie Stone's definitely cooking up trouble. Things are gonna balance out nicely, with a large variety of things being changed. First up is the fact that bologna, salami, ham, onions, and watermelon now have to be sliced before you can use them in recipes. Watermelon has to be sliced or smashed before you can eat it, so no more becoming a Looney Tune character and just swallowing the melon whole. A large variety of food items have also had their values adjusted for balance, consistency, and quality of life purposes. Now only bread slices and toast can be placed inside of toasters, which to be fair, I didn't even know the toasters were functional yet, so that's cool. A variety of recipes have been adjusted to make them more flexible and varied. Bowls of oatmeal now require hot water to be made, so no more cold soggy oats just floating in the water. Some recipes now require a bowl, plus a utensil like a spatula, spoon, or fork to mix the ingredients. which hey, really shows they give a fork about immersion. There's been a change to the rip clothing recipe, and now zombies are more drawn to gunshots in multiplayer. Now you lose less endurance when you miss a swing, and this is even more evident when you have a missed push. Now wooden pegboards and wood top workbenches can be moved, and now because you could slice onions, you can make your own fried onion rings. Now if only we could grow our own onions so we could have this later. Now some corpses you find throughout the world can pretend to be dead until you get closer. This also applies to rotting corpses too, and now the composter is thumpable, so you can't hide behind rotten vegetables anymore. Corpses that spawn in the world stories will rarely be fake dead, so odds are you're not gonna find a zombie in a Jason house outside of the Jason zombie itself. And as zombies rot away, they now have chances to spawn maggots in their inventory and the square around them. Now obese cannot be taken with light eater, and this is also true with very underweight and the hearty appetite when you create a character. Now you can still have cases of this occurring on a character who has one of the eating traits, and they develop over or underweight in the future, just not from the start of the game. Spears have also had their weights adjusted. Floor tiles now provide a maximum of 1 nail when dismantled, so no, you cannot generate infinite nails anymore by ripping up the floorboards. And lastly, eggs are dangerous if uncooked, but also have a greatly reduced chance of causing food poisoning. With that covered, let's move on to the animations and multiplayer related changes, shall we? Now, I'd like to say before we get started, I'm not going to be able to document everything multiplayer related just due to the fact that I don't have access to a server I can use for testing with people. But I'll still pass the information on to you and do my best to demonstrate it. Now let's start with the animations as they're relatively quick. First up is there's a new bottle filling animation for when you fill empty bourbon bottles. There's been some emote wheel adjustments, such as they had emote bone mask added to help keep body parts from clipping as much, and there's some stealth emote variants added to reduce the likelihood of clipping, as well as weird posing of the models. There's also been emote states added for different weapon poses, idle extension adjustments that have been made for when your player idles to help cut down on clipping and wonky poses. Now with that's done, let's talk about the multiplayer specific changes, shall we? First up, various anti-cheat improvements have been made to help keep those cheaters down. There's been some sync and physics improvements for vehicles to make them less janky. Towing physics and behaviors have also been improved so they don't go as wonky. Now admins can repair clothes via editing their condition, and if they set on the max condition, this will also remove the holes in them. How long the game takes to translate a hit reaction is now calculated with a more accurate animation clip. And now clients won't update rotting corpses and fake dead corpses. Instead, that's going to be handled by the server. Now, if you're driving and you get out of the vehicle or swap seats, the car will force the vehicle to stop first before you do so. Now, zombie appearances should be synced between players. One player cannot use 2 radios and walkie-talkies at the same time anymore. Text should appear over a ham radio when you're using a walkie-talkie in your hands. Previously, it wouldn't. Several vehicle radio issues, such as the fact that they were using the wrong coordinates, they wouldn't work like how a placed radio would, issue with radio stations, text, chat, and VoIP if you're using a radio to contact other players. These have been ironed out and hopefully fully fixed. Now vehicle trailers should be less floaty, and now the item remove tool should remove items from containers on a server. A variety of client sound, stop, and send issues have been fixed. And now when a player gets hit by a trailer, it should actually hit them properly. That's right, it's trailer splattery time. Now admins shouldn't be kicked because of an incorrect checksum. Now vehicles should stay in the same place when you log back in, and trailers shouldn't disappear. Now passengers in a car being towed should be able to get out when they occupy the driver's seat while it's being towed, and the cars should not disconnect when you log back into the server. Seat switching should be functioning properly, and now passengers shouldn't see black boxes when the car is moving at high speeds pressing on that gas. Vehicles should properly damage players when they log back in, and now players can become owners of pushed vehicles. Now the car car's cruise control won't keep the car going if the driver decides to, say, take a nap in the back seat. Now, one last non-multiplayer change I'd like to mention is now on the pause menu, you can see a button in the bottom right hand corner named Mods, which will show all the mods that are active in that save when clicked. With that complete, let's move on to the new forging and admin changes, shall we? Let's dig up these changes and forging related fixes, shall we? The icon pins and direction arrows have been adjusted, as previously the arrows would always point to the northwest corner of a square. Now the player will turn the face of forged item to pick it up, and now the forging system can better handle non-rectangular zones. This pretty much covers the extent of how forging affects you, so let's talk about the admin debug changes next, shall we? A brush tool has been added to the debug mode that lets you put down specific tiles, plus fire, smoke, explosion tiles. Admins can also now trigger thunder in game, and you can respawn new loot in a container using a context button while an admin. Admins can turn any home VHS into any VHS like in debug. The health panel cheats now have a sync, and the trailers debug has been improved. Now you can edit a character's weight in the player stats window. You can also now destroy objects without a sledgehammer if the building cheat is on. And in the debug panel, there are sliders now for changing weight and calories. There's a make noise option to attract zombies. There's also now an option to remove all the zombies in a zone with admins. This is already a thing in debug. And now moderators also have access to some admin tools. This pretty much covers the main important changes. So let's move on to the fixes, shall we? As this section will be quite large and intensive, I will mostly be covering the most relevant of fixes, so I'm not going to mention minor things such as Lua errors being flagged for X, Y, or Z. With that out of the way, let's begin with radio batteries. Now radio batteries won't spawn at 100% no matter how much time has passed, causing them to be depleted after 4 or 5 days if the radios were left on, and they will also now drain when you load a game after quitting to the main menu. Now weapon part models such as scopes will show on guns that are on the ground. Now you can't disassemble the floor at the top of a staircase, so no dismantling it to make the zombies fall down. Now the composter doesn't become unusable after you move it, and it also cannot be moved if there's compost inside of the box already. Now food unhappiness isn't reset to default when the item is loaded, which would default to 0. Now washer and dryers drain fuel from the generator when they're running, and generator fuel consumption is properly updated now when you turn items on and off. Now picking up and placing powered items also update the gen's fuel consumption. Battery powered radios now won't drain the generator's fuel. And now you only need 1 unit of fuel or more to fill a generator, and not 2 or more. And now when you add fuel to the generator, it won't play the car fueling sound effect. Now you can't open a smashed window when a vehicle blocks the other side. Hot food will now cool when you drop it on the ground instead of becoming perpetually warm. Weapon weights are now correct with their upgrade parts attached. And now if you equip an item that's already equipped when your weight is near or over capacity, it won't just drop on the ground anymore. Now you won't hear the rain hitting your car when the car is inside of a building. Also now you can upgrade wall frames and walls when there's no floor to the east or south of the wall. Now the magazine models won't appear off-center when dropped on the ground. And now players' weight will decrease when the day length is set longer than 1 hour. Previously it would not. Now equipped radios update for both split screen players, military crates and popcorn machines stack properly. The game shouldn't freeze upon the first time a vehicle's entered due to the dashboard textures being loaded. Now the min, max, and defaults show up for server option tooltips like in sandbox mode. Blood also won't be splattered on on broken windows and fences, which will cause the blood to float. Now when you hold shift, it won't cause your weight to decrease faster, nor when you hold it without moving would it cause your hunger to drain faster like you're running. Now sitting on a chair and the ground regenerate the same amount of endurance as each other, and now your car's engines will take damage if you remove the hood and run over zombies. Now you also lose endurance when you stomp zombie legs, and there's now less places where zombies can spawn in inaccessible locations. I'm sure we've all seen and made fun of the zombies that spawn behind staircases, trapped forever to exist like Harry Potter, the boy under the stairs. Now small crates are also stackable, and police car barricades that have the lights and flashers on will drain the car's battery in accordance with how much time has passed in game. Weapon parts on weapons will now show on corpses and the character info avatar. Now zombies won't play their hurt noise only once when they're hit on the ground, so ground pound those zombies and hear them moan. Now if you spear charge a zombie, the kill is added to your kill counter, and now generators can't charge a car's battery without a battery charger. Now water containers should fully empty when watering crops, and you can no longer change parts of the car while inside of the car. Now dirty rags won't be used instead of ripped sheets when you have exactly 4 ripped sheets. A bug with the ripped clothing menu has been fixed, and you now can't accidentally dismantle favorited electronics. You'll also now grab the closest cigarette in your inventory to smoke, as sometimes it would still pull a cigarette from your bag, even if you already have one in your inventory to smoke. Now the character info panel shouldn't show a male character model when the character is female, and zombies should collide properly when walking into a different vehicle and your car is nearby. Now radios with dead batteries will be found shut off, and fog from other saves shouldn't appear when you load another save. Now flashlights will fall out of your hands when you climb a wall, and the game plays the shoveling sound when you fill in a grave. You can also dismantle electronics with a screwdriver that is favorited. One good change is dried foods and ramen noodles no longer make foods more thirsty when cooked into meals. Also, granola bars and cookies are no longer perishable. Canned fruit cocktails been added properly. Pancakes are now no longer immune to burning, so hey, they'll set on fire. Partially eaten food should get lighter now in more instances, and cutting bacon rashers will no longer produce rotten bacon bits for some reason. Junk table entries for loot are now no longer affected by zombie population density. That's a weird fucking bug. Pie prep has a debuff if it's eaten on its own. Ice cream cones, as mentioned earlier, will now melt. More missing models for items have been added. Renamed items are limited to 28 characters or less. Now bleach and pop bottles full of fuel display the right category. The new food items now have proper models as well as muffin trays, carving forks, and gravy. The animal and trap sounds are properly sent to the server now. Previously visited buildings on a server now are no longer randomized after a soft reset. Custom weight of trapped animals is now remembered properly. And now claustrophobic characters can no longer sleep in tight rooms by clicking sleep on the bed from outside of the room, bypassing the room check. Vehicles with premium radios can also now play CDs, and some water containers require a microwave to purify them, and the tooltip for this has been added. Baguettes can also now be used to make sandwiches. An add all option has been added for generators, so you can add 2 cans instead of 1. Now you can equip a weapon as a secondary with a pistol in your primary. And finally, sweet pies are available in the crafting UI. This covers the fixes in their entirety, so let's cover my final thoughts on this update, shall we? Overall, it's another damn solid update. Plenty of new material and content here, including a massive boost to cooking, and a lot of new farmlands updates are nice as well. But it certainly surprised drunk me to be exploring the map, wander into a familiar area and just be like, okay, what the fuck? I know I'm drunk, but I don't remember that being there. Plus, with a large fixed pile added on top, this patch is definitely pretty hefty, and they plan to update much in the coming weeks. It'll likely be smaller patches expanding upon and fixing things this patch ended up breaking. I'm also really happy to see maps for Louisville added. I just wish they had different names, as all of them just being labeled Louisville map makes it kinda unhelpful to be like, oh hey, a map. Ah, fuck. Already found this specific one 5 times before. I also like the fact you have different options to store gasoline now. This especially gives you more options when you can't find a gas can, or really don't want to spend the 1.6 kilos of weight on an empty can, when an empty bottle weighs way less. I think this just about wraps up today's video, however, and I'd once again like to ask you for your support. If you really liked it, then consider supporting the content via becoming a member or one of the links in the description of the video. Thanks once again to all of those who choose to support the content each month and have their names listed on screen. This has been Core, and I'll see y'all next time, be that in a video or a stream. Stay safe out there.